Hello. There's going to be a slideshow while I'm talking. It's going to be a free-running slideshow of some of my photos of Palestine. And so let those roll past your consciousness as I'm talking. You don't necessarily have to follow the captions. This is a multi-purpose slideshow for all sorts of things. But, so that's going to be happening too. So you're going to get it coming at you from two directions at the same time. All right, you can start it now. So, well, yesterday, I came down for my breakfast, and then later on I went upstairs to fetch something, and my mobile phone was ringing. Not ringing, it was flashing. Palden, ring us please, quickly. Yalla, yalla, hurry, hurry. So I rang my friend in Palestine. And this is part of the work I have to do, actually. It carries on here too. And a lot of my work is to do with helping people keep their heads together. So I rang my friend in Palestine and he said, Saeed is dead. He died last night. And Saeed is a really nice guy in his 40s who is a former fighter from the first Intifada. And he is now dedicated to peace. But what he had been doing was he had smuggled himself out of the West Bank of Palestine into Israel proper, which itself is quite a difficult thing. And he was crossing over into Syria because there were members of his family who were Palestinian refugees in Syria, and they're having problems there. Especially because they're in an awkward situation, because the regime in Syria was protecting the Palestinian refugees, of whom there are 300-odd thousand. And the Syrian regime is in trouble, and so the refugees are in a very compromised situation there. So Saeed wanted to go over to see members of his family. And when I talk about family in the Palestinian term, I'm meaning at least 50 people, but it can go into the hundreds. The Palestinians are an amazing community people, and they don't have the same individualism and isolation that we experience here in the West. They're very much together, and most Palestinians live in collections of houses where there can be 40 or 50 people who are all related. And some of them are members of clans, which can go up to 70, 80,000 people spread across several countries. And so anyway, he was going over to see some of his family in Syria because they were really worried, and he was representing the family. And of course, he got shot by some Israeli soldiers in the Golan Heights on his way into Syria. And so they were asking me for some assistance and, you know, what can we do and everything. And what I did was I used one of my contacts with another guy who is he is a Druze. And so here we're coming into the multi-ethnic makeup of the Middle East, which is behind what's going on both in Palestine and in Syria and in Iraq and in all of the countries of the Middle East, really. And this friend is a remarkable man. He's a genuine, true peacemaker, and he's in his late 40s. And what happened was that his family in the Golan Heights, his family of Druze farmers, suffered a terrible tragedy about 12 years ago. His young brother, who was then about 13 or 14, was arrested by the Israelis as a terrorist. But what had actually happened was that this young brother was the shepherd to the family's sheep. And the problem was that the sheep were getting blown up by landmines. And so the family was losing quite a few sheep. So this boy, who at the time was about 12, he kind of put two and two together, and he decided to learn about landmines. In order to do this, he had to teach himself how to read, first of all. So he taught himself how to read himself on his own, and then he started reading books about landmines, and he taught himself how to defuse landmines. So he started going around their land and defusing these landmines. Of course, the Israelis caught him, And of course, he was accused of being a terrorist. And he has been in jail ever since, and he's on a 17-year sentence. And he'll be quite a lot older when he comes out. Now, Big Brother, of course, in the first instance, got very, very angered at the injustice of all this. Because the Druze are, in all of the conflicts around there, the Druze are generally quite neutral people. They're not troublemakers. But they were, in this case, falling victim of a problem which Israelis have, which is a feeling that the world is against them and that everyone who is not Jewish is a threat. And so his young brother was jailed as a terrorist. And my friend, he was faced with a big moral choice at this particular moment. He realized, really, he felt like going and killing someone. You know, he felt like going and killing an Israeli. But he realized, really, that that would not be a good thing because he would get killed himself. What good would that be to his family? What good would it be to the cause? And so he went through a kind of an enlightenment, really, where he realized that it was not going to be fruitful to fight back. He needed to do something else. And so he became one of the many freelance, self-appointed peacemakers who exist in Israel and Palestine, of whom there are quite a large number, and very, very remarkable people on both sides, including Jewish people as well. Some of the Jewish people who are working for peace or against various of the injustices that are going on there are just really, really remarkable, almost at times saintly people. And I'm telling this story. Oh yes, what happened was that this Druze, basically, they sent the family out and they rescued the dead body. Because for Muslims, when death happens, a proper burial is very, very important. So they went and rescued the body and they buried it on their own land and gave Saeed a proper send-off. So he's gone. And over the last 6 or 7 years, I've lost something around 70 or 80 friends this way. And this is one of the things you have to get used to, really, in this particular kind of game. Everything is very impermanent, everything is in the moment, and you can't really afford to get too caught up in all of the emotion over it. You've got to feel the emotion, but you can't get too caught up in it, because otherwise you become part of the problem. And this is quite a big kind of spiritual challenge, really. And this is one of the things, one of the reasons why I've chosen to get involved in this kind of thing. When I was in the LSE in the hot time at the end of the 60s, there was a big argument there, a big debate, because basically, in a rather unclear and youthful way, we were just on about peace and love. You know, all we're saying is give peace a chance. But also there was a lot of unclarity, a lot of moral, spiritual, psychological, political unclarity at the time as well. And of course, especially when men are involved in things, they get their stuff engaged in it. They get their father resentments locked into feelings about politicians and about institutions and the authorities and the powers that be. And so there was a big argument then, just down the road in the LSE, about kill the pigs versus peace. And I made my contribution, and it was a very, very important, formative time for me. Of course, I'd grown up in Liverpool as well in the 1960s, and I'd dropped my first acid when I was 15, and so I was already progressing on a path, even though I was very, very young. And there were certain things which were really clear for me. One was that the world had to change, and one was that love is the answer, and one was that peace is an absolute necessary ingredient in the transformation and the evolution of the human race. Peace or war is a way in which the human race is remaining blocked. It's standing still. It's feeling constrained.